Hey everybody, this is Mike here with IceWarm Insights, Episode 1. Today we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy VII. A few days ago on Twitter, I put out the question. I was asking people if they thought Final Fantasy VII was overrated or not. Most of you that responded said it wasn't. I tend to agree. But first of all, we're just going to discuss some history of the game. I believe this was the first Final Fantasy to use 3D visuals. I believe it was also the first of the Final Fantasy series to appear on PlayStation, because prior to that, most of the Final Fantasy stuff had appeared on Nintendo platforms. So the NES, SNES, I think there were some Final Fantasies on Game Boy, that kind of thing. So this is a big deal for PlayStation owners because they were, getting their very first Final Fantasy on that system. And I believe that's why the game, a lot of people that didn't have Nintendo systems really never played a Final Fantasy before playing Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation. So I think a lot of people hold it, really in high esteem because for many people, it was the first Final Fantasy game they ever played. Prior to this, I had played Final Fantasy 1. I didn't play 2 because I believe that was on Super Nintendo. And I had played 3 because I got a Super Nintendo the same year 3 came out. So I rented 3, played that for a while, returned it to the store, and then eventually got one of the re-releases that they did on PlayStation. So 1997, first 3D Final Fantasy, first game on that system, and many people's very first Final Fantasy game. I think a lot of the elements in this game still hold up. Mostly the story and the characters, and the music is still really good too. The only thing that doesn't hold up by today's standards is probably the visuals. I have this game on PlayStation 1, which I play on a PlayStation 2. It's like I got it in the Greatest Hits collection. And then I have the version they released a couple years ago on Steam, which, they added a few extra features into it, but the visuals even in that version don't really hold up all that well. The one thing that does throw me off with the visuals in the Steam version, or I guess even the PlayStation 1 version, is I believe there is at least 3 different character models per character. So you have the model you see when you're walking around, like, before you get into random encounters. You have the model that they use in combat, and then you have the model that they use in the cutscenes. And speaking of the cutscenes, I remember seeing commercials for this game back in '97 when I was watching WCW and WWF, Nitro and Raw, or Raw's War, and thinking that the visuals were just amazing. The commercial was actually kind of funny too because it built up this this epic story and epic world, and then the PlayStation announcer says, and if you fail, you can always hit reset, which I thought was kind of funny. And my friends and I joked about that commercial, especially that part. But the models look pretty bad. The models that you see in combat are actually decent, and they actually don't look terrible. The walking around models look kind of bad now. And then I guess you can maybe even count these aren't models, but the little character sketches. So there's like 4 different representations of each character in the game. And I don't remember this being an issue back when I played it originally. I didn't play it right away on PlayStation. I played it, I think, in like the summer of '98, I think. But the models didn't throw me off back then, but now they do, because you go from having the little tiny model that you walk around the game with, which kind of looks kind of like anime-like, and then you get into combat and you have a more realistic model, and then the cutscene models look the best, obviously. But the game, some of the cutscenes in the game weren't done with the I think it was like the pre-rendered visuals. They were done. Some of them were done in game with the little model that you walk around the game with. Other than that, the story still holds up very well. The music is still really good, and the only other thing that's kind of weird now is the controls. I'm playing it with a 360 controller, and sometimes some of the stuff, because I believe Final Fantasy VII was released before the DualShock controller, so At that point, your PlayStation controller basically just consisted of a D-pad, the shape buttons, and your triggers. So I guess when playing with a 360 controller, it might not translate very well because you're using the analog stick to move around with. And the controller support on this Steam version is kind of weird because it's only partial support. So some stuff you might still have to do on the keyboard. The only other issue that I've run into with this game is it will often always end up on like people's top lists, and it deservedly so because it's a monumental game in my opinion. I remember playing it in high school, and I hadn't played it in a while after that. I played this in '98, and then I didn't play Final Fantasy VIII until I think 2000, maybe 2000 or 2001, because that released in '99. So it was like I was like a couple years behind on that one. And also, one other interesting fact is after including Final Fantasy VII onward, the Japanese numbering has been the same as the U.S. numbering, because prior to that, I think Final Fantasy 1 was Final Fantasy 1 in both regions, and then 2 in the U.S. is actually 4, and Final Fantasy 3, or what we knew as 3, is actually Final Fantasy 6 in Japan. After 7, or including 7 and onward, everything's been the same number. So I'm not exactly sure if they just thought maybe consumers were getting confused with the numbering and just decided to, have it be consistent. Regardless, it started with Final Fantasy VII. And like I was mentioning with the lists, it will show up on these lists very often. Like either I remember back in 2005 when G4 was still around, and they hadn't switched over to reruns of Cheaters and Cops yet. They had a show called Filter, which was usually each episode they would take a list and filter out and filter down like the top 10 results. So usually with like best game, this game was on the list. I don't remember exactly where it ranked. I think it ranked at 1. And best villain was rated at Sephiroth and things like that. However, when talking to certain fans, like I'll say, I've gotten emails about this and say, what's your favorite game? And they'll say it's Final Fantasy VII. I'm like, oh, well, how many hours do you have logged in it? And they'll say they've actually never played it. This leads into the next topic. So, I think a lot of people will sometimes blindly just say it's their favorite even without playing it. At least in my experience, I've gotten a few emails where and people I've talked to in person where they've actually said that. But the reason I'm bringing this up is Square Enix recently announced just a few days ago that they're going to be releasing, I believe later this year on PlayStation 4, the remake of Final Fantasy VII, the long-awaited remake that people have been wanting for years. I remember when they had the PlayStation 3 tech demo back in 2006, I think. I don't know if they released this if it was at E3 2005 or not. I believe that the Killzone footage from PS3 was that year, but they released a tech demo of Final Fantasy VII, and I think some fans thought they were getting the remake, which they weren't. But now we're getting the remake. It'll be out, I believe, this year. They said first on PlayStation 4, so it'll probably be timed exclusive, and then maybe we'll see it on Xbox One and PC, maybe some other platforms, Mac, maybe Linux, who knows. But I'm actually looking forward to the remake. Just, they really don't have to change a whole lot. They just have to update the visuals, really. I'm fine with the old combat system, the active battle system, or whatever they called it. The story doesn't need to be changed. Music, they can maybe just, redo the music, not change the music, but just do maybe different recordings of it. I would also like the option to use the original music from the PS1 version, maybe like a higher bitrate version of that or something like that. So a lot of these people that I just mentioned that that haven't played the game will get their chance to play it on current gen hardware. Some people refuse to play the original just because it's an older game and maybe the visuals aren't up to their standards. I still think it's worth playing the original just to see what it was like, see what the original game looked like and played like, and then you can compare it to the remake, which I'm sure will be really good. So, remake's coming, finally, and this is when I opened it up to some Twitter comments. I asked, what people thought of it and if the game was underrated or overrated. I've stated I think it's not underrated. I don't think it's overrated. I think it's rated probably where it should be. Especially, like I said, especially if you compare it to other games in in the series and other games that came out around the same time. So on Twitter, I asked Malinor tweeted says it depends on who's rating. It's very good and a defining moment in the genre, but it's not best game ever or even best JRPG. I kind of agree. I think Final Fantasy VI is better than 7. I wouldn't mind seeing a remake of that. But I believe Final Fantasy 6 and 7 are kind of at the top. I rank how do I rank them? I think I rank 6, 7, and 10 are my top 3. I actually enjoyed 10-2 and really haven't played a Final Fantasy game almost since 10-2, or 10-2 is the last one I beat. I played 13 and didn't really like that it was basically like an on-rails thing like the entire time. Like you would have like no freedom where to go. It would basically be like a lot of invisible walls everywhere. Like, oh, you can't go there because there's rubble blocking it, conveniently placed rubble, so you can't get there. Yagavos tweeted. He says, "No, nothing is overrated. If people like it, and I assure you they do, then it's rated just fine." Kind of like just what I said. I like it. I don't think it's underrated or overrated. It's rated where it should be rated. All right. Malinor also said FF7 was from a time when 3D graphics were a mess of shitty polygons. It physically hurts to play it now. Remake is good. I agree. Remake should be really good, I hope. Crispy Fresh also tweeted in, said it's not, meaning overrated. It's got me very excited to play. Current version doesn't hold up well. I'm interested to see them modernize it. Agreed. Aaron Steinberg wrote in, overrated, question mark. So he's not saying it's overrated. So overrated, question mark, maybe. I think I've had my fill of sequels and remakes. Now I'm craving some innovation. Travis tweeted in as well, said it's not overrated, it's just that the graphics don't stand the test of time. But since it was so cutting edge when it came out, we remember it looking a lot better than it does. I think a remake is the perfect way to bring it back. Agreed. Brandon wrote in, he said FF7 was the first real RPG I ever played all the way through. It shaped a lot of my gaming preferences as I got older. The story and characters were some of the first I ever truly connected with. No way it's overrated. For its time, it was amazing. Question: do you think they'll update the battle system? And this is when I my tweets aren't in here, but what I responded with was, I hope they keep the battle system, the original battle system. If they want to add a new battle system, I'm all for that as well, as long as the player gets to choose which battle system they want to use. If they want to use the classic system or the new system. I'm cool with either one. Also, Matt wrote in. He said replacing the battle system would be bad. FF games are all about the battle systems. I tend to agree. That's why I said if they did this, they would need to let us play with the classic system as well. Rob wrote in and says, "Is the game for people who already like it, or to tell the story to new generations?" I think both. I think the people that love Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation, the original release, will love the remake, and I also think the remake is a perfect way to introduce this story to a new generation of players. And finally, Eric wrote in, he says, I sort of think it is. However, I sat down to play 7 after having played 8. They're the only Final Fantasies I've ever played. So with 8 being my gateway, 7 felt clunky to me and certainly looked clunky. I kind of agree, because if you go from 8 to 7, 7 won't look as good, because I think in 8 they got rid of my problem I mentioned with the different character models. The character model you play in and move around within the overworld and world map looks more similar to the model you have when you're in the battle mode. So that might be kind of jarring, jumping from 8 to 7. I really liked 8 too, even with if you think about the story, is kind of weird, because basically everything you do in that game, spoilers if you haven't played 8, stop listening or watching now. Basically, the time it's like a time compression thing. So what happens is everything you did essentially becomes like a time loop, and it just repeats over and over and over again. Interesting story element, but I think like he said, jumping from 8 to 7 may be weird. So hopefully the remake will give new players the excellent story that we've already played through, but it'll bring it up to a modern generation and have a whole new generation of gamers ready to play. So overall, I think the consensus is Final Fantasy VII is not overrated. I agree. I still love it, and a lot of people are looking forward to the remake, as am I. I currently don't have a PlayStation 4, so I will be waiting for this to come to hopefully PC at some point. And if I get an Xbox One or a PS4, hopefully it'll come to Xbox One as well. It'll be, I believe, timed exclusive for PlayStation 4. And I believe that should be out, I think they said end of the year, hopefully. So I want to thank everybody for watching this first episode of IceWarm Insights. I would love to hear your thoughts and comments, so you can either leave them in the comment section below, or you can tweet me on Twitter. I am at IceWarm, ICEWARM. If you like this video, subscribe, like it, things like that. And I want to thank you all for watching, and we'll see you. Hopefully, we'll maybe do one of these IceWarm Insight episodes, maybe once a week with a different topic. And we'll obviously be answering your Twitter questions and things like that. So thanks for watching, and take care.